Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 154 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. This week we are a trio. We're also joined by IFLTV's young new man, but not too much of a new man anymore. Been doing it for quite a while now, Mr. Umar Ahmed. Umar, welcome to the show also.
All good, Joey, you?
Yeah, very good, my friend, very good. Like I say, I will come to you in due time. I'm just going to fly through some of the results from last week. We're going to start with the review part of the show. We're going to start in a place called, well, I mean, this is something for my pronunciation here. I'm going to try, though. A place in Poland called the Hala Widowiskowo in Spultowa in I'm just going to stop there. Many different places, this one. It's a venue in a town, in a city, in a location in Poland. We're going to leave it at that. But one fight to mention over here, a guy over here called Damian Jonak. The reason why I mention this guy, he's moved to 41-0 with one draw, which it deserves a mention, even though I've had a little look at the record and it's extremely padded. But anyway, he took on a guy called Sherzod Kusanov, who also was undefeated, 21-0 with one draw, but an 8-round unanimous decision in favour of Jonak. Like I say, now 41-0 with one draw. Everyone that's trying to rival Mayweather's record gets a thumbs up from me. Moving over now to Thailand, one fight to mention over here, another guy that's chasing Mayweather's record. We mentioned it last week, a guy called Tasana Sempatan. He's moved to 48-0 now. Unbelievable. I think he's only about 23 or 24. So we may even see him, winding up with about 100 fights under his belt. But it is what it is. He took on a guy. He was supposed to take on a guy who I think was about 3-6, I think his record was. But that fight didn't end up happening. Instead, in jumps a guy who is just listed on BoxRec as unknown. So no one quite knows the identity of this guy, but he got in the other corner and he got knocked out in a round. And that's what I like to see. I like to see guys 48-0 now, fighting guys who have never had a pro fight, or probably even amateur fight in their whole lives. I like their style there in Thailand, improving that unbeaten record. Moving over now, though, to the Brentwood Centre in Essex, United Kingdom. Now, Umar, I know that you were in attendance for this, Bill, so I'm just going to come to you in a second. A couple of the other results that I want to mention here. Danny Dignam proceeded to 8-0, a TKO in round 4 against Danny Shannon. Jake Paul extended his win streak. We'll be speaking to him later on in the show. His record now 12-1, a TKO against Philip Coty in the third round. Coty's record now 32-13 with 2 draws. Coty's a man that only really gets stopped against top opposition, so quite a good win there for Jake Paul. He's obviously got a big fight lined up for next month. Also, Sammy McNess picked up win number 10. He's got one loss also. A points win over 6 rounds against Innocent and Wanyu, who I've seen once or twice before. I like that name there. That's about it really for the standout names for me, Omar. But is there anything else that went on that show? The main event, of course, I left out as well. But anything exciting that we missed?
No, you've touched upon on the main points from the card really. Obviously you mentioned Jake Paul. He's up with Dominic Ingle now in the Ingle gym, so exciting times for him. And the main event was definitely fight of the night for the Super Welter title English. Billy Bird being the MTK fighter, but actually he lost on points to Adam Harper, who's obviously now the English champ. It was a cracking fight. Many people had it sort of level or round either way, but Adam Harper nicked it in a great fight and a good bill generally on in Essex the other night.
Yeah, a decent. Well, I say a decent venue. I've been to the Brentwood Centre before. It's definitely not your your VIP lounge type of place. But yeah, still a solid place for boxing. Adam Harper now 9-1, the new English super welterweight champion. The title was vacant before the bout. A majority decision. So like you say, Umar, very, very close fight. One judge did give it a draw, but he was overruled by the other two judges that scored in favour of Harper. Moving over now to the MBS Arena in Brandenburg in Germany. One or two fights to mention over here. Let's start with this one. A guy on the bill called Cheek Diem. His record was 11-2, now 11-3. He also carries one draw. He got in there against Tyrone Zeuger. Yes, we know that man got defeated by Rocky Fielding when Rocky Fielding took his O and his world title a few weeks back, or a couple months back now. So yeah, Tyrone Zeuger returned here with a win, a TKO in the 8th and final round. His record now 23-1 with one draw. The main event though, Jack Kulkai, he moved to 25 wins. He's got 3 losses also, and he picked up the vacant IBF International Middleweight title. Rafael Bajaram was in the other corner. His record now 25-3 with one draw. Jack Kulkai scored a 10th round TKO there. Moving over now to Turkey. One fight to mention over here. It happened in Istanbul. Firat Arslan, I think it was just the other week or so. He turned 48, if I'm not mistaken. He's trotting on. He's picked up another win here. His record now 44 wins, 8 losses and 2 draws. A knockout in the second round, and he defended successfully his Global Boxing Union World Cruiserweight title. In the other corner, Pascal Ndomba, an African fighter there that got KO'd. Like I say, his record now 23-9 with 2 draws. He hadn't really fought anyone of note, and to get in there against Firat Arslan, I mean, even though Arslan's 48 years old, it is what it is. That is a very tough task. Moving over now to the big one, the pay-per-view fight that took place last Saturday in the Wembley Arena, or not the Wembley Arena, where am I going? The Wembley Stadium. I should know. I was sat next to you for the entire night, Umar. I will come to you in just a second. Let's start with the undercard. Not too much on the undercard. The whole bill itself actually consisted of just 5 fights, which, if you think about that, on pay-per-view is equivalent to £4 per fight. Some people not too pleased, but that is for those people to discuss. One fight that I want to mention that kind of went under the radar, I guess. Shakram Gyasov, he moved to 5-0. It was a TKO in 4 rounds against the previously undefeated Julio Laguna, whose record is now 14-1. Like I say, a 4th round TKO there. That was the first fight of the night. The second fight of the night, Sergey Kuzmin, he extended his win streak to 13-0. He took on the very likeable Scouser, Mr. David Price, 22-6 now, David Price. This one was for the vacant WBA Inter-Continental Heavyweight title. Like I say, Kuzmin now the champion of that belt. And after 4 rounds, David Price retired on his stall with a torn right bicep. Now, I mean, a lot of people, including myself, was extremely shocked at the time, because it was very unclear to see what had happened. All we knew, or all that we'd heard, is that his corner had pulled him out, and there wasn't anything too apparent as to why. Obviously, you know, in the post-fight interview, David Price addressed that, but a lot of people feeling kind of shortchanged by the whole thing. Ayaz, I'm going to come over to you first. What did you make of David Price's, his efforts? I mean, he was right in that fight, you'd have to say, and to go out like that and to retire on his stall, like I say, after a fairly competitive fight, seems a real shame, because he was given another chance on a big stage and he wasn't able to capitalise.
Yes, I think obviously at the start he was doing very, very good. Obviously, he took the fight on a very short notice. He was meant to fight. Was it Sean Turner before?
Yes.
Yes, obviously he pulled that out of that fight. He fought Kuzmin. To be fair, now I personally think obviously he did do good in the fight, but he was getting hurt a bit. But I have to tell you one thing. For me personally, I think David Price should technically hang up his gloves. I don't want him seeing getting hurt over and over and over again. Like Povetkin, Povetkin knocked him out. He's had a couple of bad losses. The thing with David Price, since he's lost to that Tony Thompson, there's something with his mind. I don't know what it is, but since that Tony Thompson's loss, it's gone all downhill for him. To be fair, I think it's time for David Price for him to hang up the gloves. it's because obviously for his health, and I don't. He obviously shouldn't get hurt anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real shame, like I say, the way it ended. I mean, Price was very much in the fight. Both men took shots well. Both men landed decent shots themselves. And Kuzmin probably threw more. I mean, I wasn't actually scoring it, but I did feel that both men were neck and neck. And then out of nowhere, when Price's corner pulled him out with that bicep injury, it was quite shocking. But yeah, like I say, Price did... he did come out and say in the post-fight interview that he knew of the injury going into the fight and decided to still go ahead with the fight because he couldn't turn down the opportunity. So in some ways, he basically kind of took advantage of the pay-and-fight fans there. I mean, it was a pay-per-view, and to pull a stunt like that was quite bizarre. I mean, especially from someone with the characteristics of David Price. And he also went on to say that he'd probably be out the ring for about a year with the injury. So, that was quite unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't really believe it. He did well to not get knocked out. I mean, obviously, I don't want to come across too harsh, but I think most people had the feeling that he probably wasn't going to win that fight, if I'm being honest. And, that's what I thought would probably happen. He'd probably get stopped, but it's in a kind of weird way. It's good that he got stopped by his corner pulling him out due to an injury, rather than seeing him be rendered unconscious or anything like that. But aside from that, I was a little bit annoyed being a fight fan also, and seeing that he pulled a move like that, and like I say, now he's going to be out for a whole year. I mean, you kind of felt that was a real last chance saloon for him. I mean, we thought that when he took on Povetkin on the Joshua Parker undercard and he got knocked out brutally there, then this chance came out of nowhere. I think he had one fight in the interim against a guy that, was not really going to cause him any trouble. So he gets in with Kuzmin here, another big chance for him, pretty undeserved, to be honest. And, he retires on his store and then says he's going to be out for a whole year. So I'm not really super excited to see him back in the ring, Ayaz. I'm going to kind of side with what you said there. I think that if he were to retire, then I'd be pretty happy for that to happen. But, at the end of the day, it's not down to me to decide what he does. It's ultimately up to him. I like the guy. I've said it many times, and I wish him nothing but the best with whatever he decides to do in the future. Umar, do you want to drop a couple words on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit gutting, especially as David Price is an MTK fighter. Listen, Kuzmin was always going to be a tough fight, but as you say, as I said, that he was doing really well, probably level going into that round. But yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate what's happened with his career, and being out for a year, it's not going to help things. And I was a bit surprised really when he said in the IFLTV interview that he wanted to come out. Go to Russia, and rematch Kuzmin. But yeah, as I agree with you, whatever he does next, I wish him the best, because obviously he's massively liked and still a popular figure in British boxing.
Yeah, for sure. We wish Pricey nothing but the best. Moving up the bill once again, a fight here that a lot of people are criticising. Akoli versus Askin. Obviously, in this fight, like I say, I wasn't really scoring it at all, but there was lots and lots of clinching. Very, very hard to score the rounds, actually. Not a great atmosphere during the fight. Not the fight that many people expected. A very bad clash of styles, even though, on paper, we were really looking forward to that fight. Very scrappy fight. Akoli had a point deducted in the 5th round for what I believe was persistent use of the head. Like I say, a very scrappy fight. I think he had another point took off in the 8th round and then another point took off in the 11th round. So theoretically, I was explaining this to you at the time, Umar, theoretically, one time in 3 different rounds he had a point took off, which most judges would give that a 10-8 round to the other fighter, meaning that there's a 6-point discrepancy there. So, in a 12-round fight, which it was, 3 10-8 rounds would be Askins leading by 6 points. So, Okolie would then need to win 6 rounds, 10-9, to level it back up, and then there'd be 3 rounds remaining that would be up for grabs to see who won the fight. But also, most referees, when they take a third point away, they would automatically disqualify the fighter. Obviously, the referee didn't do that here. When we did see the final scorecards, a lot of people were very, very shocked. Askin loses his British cruiserweight title here. Lawrence Okolie wins it and extends his winning record to double figures, now 10-0. Matty Askin now 23-4 with 1 draw. I believe that him and his management team have decided to appeal the decision. I think they've got in touch with the British Boxing Board of Control. I'm not quite sure what can happen now, but I think they're searching for some kind of immediate rematch, and I think he's probably got a leg to stand on, to be honest. But the fight itself, very, very hard to sit through, Umar.
Yeah, it's a weird one with Okolie because on paper he's beaten arguably the 2nd, 3rd and 4th best cruiserweights within the country, and is now obviously British champ. But barring obviously the Watkins fight where it was just a destructive performance, they weren't the best fights, were they? Chamberlain and Askin fights, Okolie will be the first to admit that, especially the Askin one obviously being on pay-per-view. But yeah, what can you say? There's still 3 wins and he's the best cruiserweight in Britain. But yeah, not the most fan-friendly fights, especially, as I said, the Chamberlain one and the one on Saturday night.
Ayaz, what did you make of the performance? Obviously, Umar's right when he says that, you know, the most important thing ultimately is the wins. And in my eyes, like I've said before, I mean, the Chamberlain fight, I honestly gave Chamberlain a big chance against him. I thought that Chamberlain would probably beat him. It was very much a 50-50 fight. With Watkins, I also thought that Watkins, I gave him a big chance against Okolie, and it was just no contest at the end of the day. Okolie was just far too good that night for Watkins. And then he took on here Askin, who I actually picked last week to stop Okolie, and of course that didn't look like happening at any point, but he has won by hook or by crook. What did you make of it?
To be fair, it was a bit of a boring fight. It was a bit scrappy. To me, it reminded me a bit of the Isaac Chamberlain fight, but obviously Okolie's got the win. See where he goes from there, to be fair.
Yeah, just to reiterate the prediction league, last week I went with Kuzmin by knockout. We all actually went with Kuzmin by knockout, so we all gained a point there. And then I went with Askin by knockout. Ayaz, you went with Okolie by knockout, and so did the listeners, so nobody gained a point there. No one saw Okolie winning on points, which did end up happening. Moving up the card once again, we had Luke Campbell 18-2 take on Yvonne Mendy 40-4 with 1 draw. Obviously Mendy going into the fight with that 1 win over Luke Campbell. You know, he took his he dropped him when they met for the first time. This was the rematch. Very, very cautious kind of fight really from Luke Campbell, who I think, you know, he's been dropped a few times now, and I think he's kind of realised that his defence needs to improve, and that's why I believe he's gone from coach to coach to try and find someone that he can gel with and improve that defence. The fight itself, I mean, just to go over what I saw, I mean, for the most part, Luke was keeping Mendy behind his jab. He wasn't loading up. He wasn't over-committing. Like I say, he was being very cautious. And he was outlanding Mendy, in my eyes, but only with little tipper-tapper kind of shots, little point-scoring shots, no real power behind them. Mendy was trying, and he was actually on the front foot for the whole fight pretty much, but he just couldn't really seem to get past Campbell's jab for the most part of the fight. And to be honest, it was another bit of a boring fight, really. And, you know, the people around me, I remember in the media section, were complaining about the undercard being quite poor at that stage. And we were all hoping that the main event would kind of turn things around, turn the night around, which obviously it did. And we're going to get onto that in due time. But does anyone want to jump in on Luke Campbell and Mendy there?
Yeah, I thought it was as you said, it wasn't the most fan-friendly fight again, but Luke had to do what he had to do, got rid of that demon from before that lost to Mendy, and it was just an easy night's work for him. He, as you said, behind the jab, looked brilliant. Fight was eliminated for Mikey Garcia's belt, but we don't know what's going on with Mikey Garcia, whether he's going to fight Errol Spence at 147 or whatever. I don't know what Mikey Garcia is planning to do, but I thought Luke did really well against one of the best fighters in the world in Jorge Linares. And he looked, faultless against Mendy on Saturday night. So, big things for Luke, especially under Shane McGuigan now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, the predictions, I actually went with Campbell to win on points, so I got that one right. The listeners also went with that, but as you went with Campbell to win by knockout. Obviously, I reminded you that no one has managed to stop Mendy, and it wasn't going to be Luke Campbell last Saturday, so you missed out on a point there. Talking about the main event though, Anthony Joshua 21-0, 20 by knockout. He took on Alexander Povetkin 34-1, a man that had never been stopped. The one loss came to Vladimir Klitschko, a much more a much better version of Klitschko than the one that Joshua took on last April. This one was for the IBF, IBO, WBA Super and WBO World Heavyweight crowns. Povetkin down twice in that 7th round. A very good contest up until the stoppage. Very interesting fight. Obviously, in the first round, Joshua's legs dipped after a combination from Povetkin in the last 5 seconds of that round. It made the whole crowd kind of ooh a little bit, actually. I didn't think that there was too much that went on in the first round, really, aside from that. So it was a good little finish there from Povetkin. Not too much action, though, in that round. It was for me, a little bit of a 10-10 kind of round. The second round, Povetkin certainly won. It was a very clear round for him. Joshua hadn't really thrown a right hand at that point at all. He was only seeming to just jab, and most of his jabs were actually missing. Povetkin was really doing well with his elusive work. Povetkin was doubling up and throwing combinations. He was starting to find a home for his left hook, and also he was showing, like I say, very good punch evasiveness. In the third round, Joshua started really well. Povetkin did well in the middle part of the round, but Joshua finished really strong. So a very close round in my eyes, an argument for a 10-10. But if I had to edge it to anybody, then I felt that it was probably a Joshua round, which I think some people around me disagreed with. Now, the fourth round, it was a very slow round, not too much landed. Povetkin was lunging in with his wild left hook, but he wasn't really landing it. Joshua busted up Povetkin's left eye, but I think Joshua at that point, he had a bloodied nose himself. I felt that Joshua did nick that fourth round, but it wasn't very clear to score once again. The fifth round, arguably, Povetkin won that round. Joshua was being backed up for the whole fight, really, at that point. And in the sixth round, Joshua did start coming forward and pushing Povetkin back for the first time in the fight. Joshua landed a lovely right hand, but Povetkin responded very well. It was another really hard round to split the pair, but I hate to say it, there were a lot of rounds which I felt were very difficult to score. Like I say, I was really finding it quite difficult who to give a round to. So it was very subjective. A lot of people online had their version. A lot of people that were there had their version. Joshua, I felt, got that sixth round. And then in the seventh round, like I say, in this round, going into this round, I had it 3 rounds apiece, so a draw for me after 6 rounds. But like I say, in the 7th, Joshua landed with an overhand right, which put Povetkin in trouble, and then Joshua jumped on him with a barrage of left and right hooks, and down went Povetkin. I actually thought he was done at that point, because he kind of fell through the ropes a little bit, and then he got back up, and like I say, when the referee asked the pair to, or ordered the pair to box on, Joshua landed a beautiful combination, which I believe started with a left hook and ended up with a left uppercut and a chopping right hand, and in jumped the referee. Despite most people scoring the fight to Povetkin, when I looked at various different scorecards on Twitter and stuff like that, it is a 12-round fight, and Anthony Joshua just stopped there, an Olympic gold medalist who had never been stopped in a professional ring, and like I say, he did it in 7 rounds. So I had to take my hat off, and I take it off once again here. And just to reiterate and go over a couple of other facts, obviously, Povetkin, a lot of people are now saying that, oh, he was old. Well, Povetkin, obviously, we know he's 39 years of age. He's not a spring chicken, but he didn't really show any signs of slowing down. I mean, we're not quite sure at what point of his career he was taking, illegal substances and not. But we do know that the last couple fights that he's been in of any decent level have gone the distance. He's kind of stopped knocking people out. So, there was that factor that he was slowing down, but he certainly wasn't absolutely past it. It was never ever going to be a one-sided beat down from Joshua. I was one of the firm believers that felt this fight was going to be a real hard fight, and it was, but a brilliant finish there from Anthony Joshua. I'm going to come to you first, Ayaz. What did you make of his performance there?
It was a very good performance, first of all, let me say. at the start, I remember Eddie Hearn said in an interview that Anthony Joshua was ill. He had a couple of nudges. But at the start, to be fair, Povetkin's a very good fighter. Very, very tough. Did he broke his nose? Bruised from that hurt?
I think everyone kind of thought it was broken, but I think medically he's had it checked, and I don't actually think it's broken, so it was just blooded. I think the same kind of thing happened with Takam, I believe.
I remember watching the fight. It looked to me, I thought it was broken, and I thought, oh god. And obviously, Povetkin did very, very good. Povetkin, we knew that a lot of people underestimated Povetkin, but they didn't know how good and dangerous he was. I personally thought Povetkin this is a very, very dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua, and if he overcome this, which he did, obviously from the start, Povetkin did a lot of pressure on him. What he was doing, Povetkin was coming forward and going for that right hook. Every single time he was going for that right hook. Someone had it 5 rounds to Joshua. I didn't see that. Obviously, Povetkin wobbled Joshua a couple of times in the first round, the third round, and even in the fourth round as well. But obviously, in the 7th round, obviously in the 6th round, Joshua hurt him a lot, and in the 7th round, uppercut and threw the right hand, and Povetkin was gone from there. Now, where does Joshua go from here? Obviously, they're saying about the Dillian White. Obviously, they're talking about the Deontay Wilder fight. I personally think that fight is not going to happen, and I think the next fight at Wembley is going to be Dillian White.
Yeah, just to before I throw it over to Umar, it was funny because obviously Joshua said that we're going to put a poll on Twitter, and he's put 3 guys as candidates for his next fight. Obviously, he's put Tyson Fury, he's put Deontay Wilder, and he's put Dillian White. And I think most people believing it's probably going to be Dillian White, but Dillian White has had literally about 4 or 5 or 6% of the votes. So obviously, people don't really want to see that rematch there. But one thing I will just mention there. I kind of find it quite bizarre how, Joshua's people are obviously reaching out to Deontay Wilder's people trying to set up a fight in April when, Deontay Wilder, if the Fury fight will happen like we believe it's going to be happening, then how can you really plan past Fury, in terms of Deontay Wilder? I mean, this is going to be Wilder's hardest fight against Fury and certainly not a foregone conclusion. So, to kind of try and make a fight for April, I think Deontay Wilder certainly needs to concentrate on what's in front of him. I think everyone would agree on that. But what did you make of the fight, Umar, itself? Obviously, Joshua Povetkin, like we say, a lot of people around us scoring the fight here, there and everywhere, and it really didn't matter in the end because Joshua emerged the victor.
Yeah, I thought it was a great main event. Saved the night, really. I had it 58-56 to Povetkin. So Povetkin by 2 up going into the 7th. But as you say, it didn't matter in the end. Yeah. Brutal from Joshua. Showed why he's one of the best in the world. And yeah, we all want to see, obviously, the winner of Wilder Fury fight Joshua. But obviously, if Fury does come out on top on December the 1st, there will be a rematch clause in place. So Fury Wilder will happen again. So if that is the case, we'll probably see Joshua rematch Dillian White April the 13th at Wembley Stadium, which is still a very good fight because obviously in the first one we saw Dillian have Josh in trouble, and Dillian, had a problem with his shoulder, he said, and he was much rawer. Then he's gone on obviously to beat Lucas Brown, Helenius, Joseph Parker since then. Derek Chisora obviously was a close fight, but he's done really well. Dillian White since his loss to Joshua. So any 3 of them on April 13th is going to be a good fight against Joshua. But yeah, a good main event on Saturday night, and Povetkin for me would beat a lot of heavyweights. Currently, I know 39-40 now and past his peak, but some of the left hooks he was throwing on Saturday night and the counters really troubling Joshua. And Joshua wasn't doing much in the first 6. His jab to the body was really good, and I think sort of that weird and broke Povetkin down, leading to the finish in the 7th. But Povetkin is still a world-class operator for me. But does he retire? I don't know. But I still think he'd beat a lot of heavyweights out there still.
Yeah, I'd love to see him take on Joseph Parker. I mean, I'm not going to discuss what would happen in that fight just now, but if anyone wants to give their opinion, let us know at BoxHard Podcast on Twitter. I'd love to see that fight, or perhaps throw another name at me. Who should Povetkin fight next? Which top contender should he fight? But yeah, moving over now to 1 or 2 other bills just before we wrap up part 1. We have a fight that took place at the Town Hall in Walsall, West Midlands, United Kingdom. One fight to mention over here. Tyler Denny, 9-0 with 2 draws, took on Reece Cartwright, 21-1. Obviously, Reece Cartwright was really on track, really exciting the fight fans. A real good prospect until he lost a real shock loss to, I think it was a bit of a journeyman actually. He lost to him and then he came back, and obviously he's picked up the English middleweight title here, which was vacant. A TKO in round 8 for Reece Cartwright, a young fighter. I'm glad to see that he's back on track there, and he's taken Tyler Denny's O. The bout actually got stopped by the doctor after the doctor inspected Denny's. His lip was badly cut, and I think he was damaged on his right eye. So a good win there for Reece Cartwright, like I say. Moving over stateside now to the Bowie State University. It was actually the first fight, I believe, a first professional fight anyway, on this specific college grounds, which does seem pretty bizarre. But Evander Holyfield was the promoter of this show, so no one's arguing with him. But one fight to mention over here, friend of the show, Alontis Fox, former opponent of Demetrius Andrade. He moved to 24-1 with 1 draw, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Elvin Ayala, whose record now is 29-11 with 1 draw. Finally, moving over to there's one bill after this, but moving over now to the Whataburger Field in Corpus Christi, Texas, USA. One fight to mention over here, Selena Barrios, the sister of Mario Barrios. Once again, Selena, her last fight, so the fight before this, we streamed live on our website. She's a promising fighter, real good amateur, and a lady that fights in the pro ranks, literally throws with intent every single shot. She actually went the distance here, though. She went 10 2-minute rounds against Patricia Juarez, who also was undefeated. Both ladies were 4-0 going in, but Selena Barrios moved to 5-0, and she's taken the O here of Patricia Juarez. Also, Barrios remains the NABF female lightweight champion, so a good defense for her there. Moving over now to Monday, though. This fight took place earlier this week, the 24th of September. One fight to mention that happened over in Japan at the Takeda Teva Ocean Arena. One fight to mention, like I say, Kosi Tanaka. He fought for the WBO World Flyweight title against the champion Sho Kimura. Kimura 17-1 with 2 draws going in. Tanaka managed to win unanimously over 12 rounds, so he's the new WBO World Flyweight champion. His record 12-0, a real emerging fantastic fighter there from Japan, Mr. Kosi Tanaka. But that's really it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, we will bring in our first guest, but just before we do that, it's now time to say goodbye to IFL's Umar Ahmed. Umar, thank you very much for coming on this week's show. Obviously, you've been with us for the first part here, and we look forward to having you on another date sometime. But like I say, thank you very much for joining on this week's show, my friend.
No problem, Joey. Pleasure, and enjoy Grove Smith on Friday night.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Okay, and like I say, the last thing to do just before we wrap up part 1 is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the WBA Inter-Continental Light-Heavyweight champion. It's, of course, Mr. Jake Bull. Jake, welcome back on the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Joey, mate.
It's always my pleasure having you on, Jake. Last time we spoke, it was quite a while ago, actually, back in December. So quite a lot has happened since then. Obviously, one thing at a time. You were getting ready at the time to take on Miles Shinkwin. You came through that fight. You banked a valuable 10 rounds. A very good learning fight for you, in my opinion. And the fight was very entertaining throughout. Would you agree with that? And was that fight tougher than the Joe Sheriff fight? 2 questions in one there. Take it away.
Yeah, no, it was a very good learning fight. Obviously, another good 10 rounds. Obviously, just ticking the box again that you can go into those into those later rounds and still get the win out. It was a very good fight. It was one of those where obviously, as everyone knows, in the Joe Sheriff fight, I sort of it was the first time I experienced an injury during a fight. I done my hand in the second round of that fight. So it sort of threw me off for a few rounds. Sort of caught me off guard because it's the first time I've ever experienced any sort of injury or any sort of pain, basically during a fight, and obviously having to push through it. The first time of doing that to pull the win off. So when my hand, I think my hand went again in the 4th or 5th round of the Shinkwan fight, but I was obviously, it's never a good thing, but where I sort of was already through that sort of stage once already in my career, I sort of knew how to deal with it. So yeah, so I would say the Shinkwan fight was probably a bit more of a, I think I sort of dealt with it a lot better than what I did the Sheriff fight.
And you mentioned there about the hand going, and for the hand to go in 2 back-to-back fights, that would indicate that perhaps, you know, there's quite a serious problem there. Have you had a chance to get someone to look at it? Is everything sorted now? How is it?
Yeah. Well, obviously, that's what caused the delay. Obviously, that's why I've had a quiet year this year. I had it sorted January this year, so that's why I've been I was just been in the gym, in the gym, training hard, still just doing what I can, recovering, rehab, and then until last week, where obviously I had my comeback, and all is good now. All is good, and roll on October 27th.
So, like I say, another thing that's happened outside of the ring, you've decided to make the move to Sheffield to train at the reputable Ingle gym. Firstly, Jake, you were with Jimmy Mack for a long time. If you don't mind me asking, was the split your decision? Was it mutual? Are you still friends, the pair of you? How's things now between you and Jim?
Yeah, no. It was my decision. It was just one of those where it's just one of those things where a change was needed. So it was just the Ingles gym was the right move for me at the right time. Me and Jimsky 100%. I saw Jimsky. I chatted to Jimsky face to face about it. We sat down and had a coffee overall. He wishes me nothing but luck. He sounded like, listen, I would have a bad word to say about Jimsky. What he's done for me in my pro career, obviously, like transitioning me from amateur to pro, is massive. So he's played a big part of my career up to now. So he's a mate of mine, for a very long time with me.
Yeah, very well said, very well said. I'm pleased to hear that. And obviously, you say there the move to Sheffield. It sounds like it was kind of like a no-brainer for you. Why the Ingle gym? It's obviously a long way away from Surrey.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, obviously, there would have been a lot easier route for me to go by, but it's one of those. It's just putting myself obviously out of my comfort zone. Like, I'm serious about where I want to be in this sport. I see myself as a world champion. So to do that, I've got to surround myself by people in the same mindset. And obviously, the talent and the fighters that are in the Ingle gym is second to none. So obviously, iron sharpens iron. I'll be honest with you, for sort of a southpaw boxer who's got a bit of movement, I don't think there's no better place than the Ingle gym.
And you mentioned there on Friday you had your comeback fight. It was also your first fight under Dominic Ingle. You took on Philip Cote. Now, Cote's also a southpaw, and to be fair to him, he only really gets beaten by good fighters. You managed to stop him in 3 rounds. Only one man has managed to get him out of there quicker, and that, of course, was Kell Brook. Kell did it in 2, you did it in 3. But aside from that, we've had world title challengers in the ring with Cote, and they've needed much longer than 3 rounds. So really impressive from you there. Talk us through that fight for those that may not have seen it, Jake.
Yeah, no, it was one of those. We had a few opponents come to us, but ideally, it was a 6-round fight. I wanted someone who was going to sort of take me a few rounds. Kofi, he was actually, I think he was the 3rd opponent that was actually selected. We got him on like 2 or 3 days' notice. But he's always in good shape. You see from the fight, he's in good physical shape. It was one of those. He's a very awkward customer, very tricky, very awkward to gauge. So I was sort of Dominic just told me just basically the first 2 rounds, no matter what happens, just get 2 rounds out of him, just see where he is. I just kept him at the sharp boxing in the first 2 rounds. Come to the corner after the 2nd round, and Dominic said, he said, just step up now. He said, and you're getting out of there. So I just started putting a few more combinations together, and got the win. Lovely.
Obviously, you mentioned also your next fight's going to be at the Copper Box on the 27th of October on a brilliant bill, by the way. The bill is full up with 50-50 fights. Your fight is also, in some people's eyes, a 50-50. You'll be taking on Craig.
In some people's eyes, yes. In some people's eyes, it may be.
You'll be taking on Craig Richards, a man with only one loss, which came to obviously Frank Buglioni in a fight where he only had about 4 or 5 days' notice, and he managed to go the entire 12, to give him credit. What else do you know about Craig, Jake?
No, to be honest with you, I know Craig anyway in the boxing. He's a sound kid. It's one of those, there ain't really much haste and malice in this fight. It's just one of those where obviously we're both at a similar stage of our career. It's one of those fights that, listen, I didn't have to take this fight. I'm the one who's been calling this fight out. I want this fight at the start of the year, but obviously due to injury myself, it's been postponed. And it's one of those where I want to be in those fights. Like my last 2 fights with Sheriff and Shinkwin, I was like top prospects who's looking to move on. They're the sort of fights that sort of draws the crowd's interest. It's the sort of fights I want to be in. I don't want to be in fights where I'm walking in the ring and everyone's thinking, oh yeah, Jake's going to ball this fellow over. I want fights where there's going to be split opinions, fans from both sides, I'm in an iron about it. So yeah, it's a good fight for me, exciting fight for me. I'm looking forward to it, training hard for it, and I'm positive that I'll be walking away with the victory.
And providing you win this fight, Jake, is there a plan for afterwards? I know that you don't like to look too far ahead, but, you know, in terms of perhaps the British title or something, or not just yet? Yeah,
well, I think regarding the British title and even the Commonwealth, obviously I'll be keeping a close eye on Callum Johnson, who's fighting Beterbiev October 6th. So depending on how he goes, I touch wood that Johnson can pull it off and beat him, because obviously then it frees up both those belts. But first and foremost, take care of business October 27th, and then I'll leave what's after that up to Dominic and Eddie.
Yeah, brilliant answer. I was going to mention the Callum Johnson fight. Obviously, we all hope he does get the victory. A very, very hard task for him. I want to get your reaction to Joshua versus Povetkin if you've had a chance to watch it. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I watched it live. I mean, it's one of those. I think Povetkin. I actually listen. I think Joshua done fantastic. I personally, I don't think Joshua was on the ball that night. He wasn't his normal self. But fair play to him. Listen, he showed that he is a real champion, because obviously it was a hard fight. Getting caught with a lot of shots coming in, but he grinded the winner. He pulled the win off in fantastic fashion. It reminded me of the Carlos Takam fight, because when I first saw that Takam fight him, I saw he sort of had that sort of Tyson-esque sort of style, getting under the shots and catching him as he's stepping in. And Povetkin was sort of doing the same. Every time Tyson, Joshua was pumping his jab out, he just slipping on the inside, coming over with the right, then uppercut hook, and he was catching him. He was catching him with 2s and 3s, and sort of shaking Joshua. But obviously he took it. Come back strong and got the win, so you can't knock him for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I like your analysis there. And coming down to the last couple questions, Jake, another brilliant fight. I mean, we're talking about the likes of your fight with Craig and all the rest of these brilliant all-British affairs. We've got a fantastic all-British affair coming up this week, Friday, obviously, in Saudi Arabia. For some reason, we've got George Groves and we've got Callum Smith. Who wins that one? Brilliant fight.
To me personally, I think it should be Groves. Albeit he's healthy and physically he can withstand 12 rounds. I believe Groves should win that quite comfortable.
Okay. A lot of people split on that one, Jake. You seem pretty confident with Groves.
Yeah. Obviously, I know he has issues with his shoulder and whatnot. So I think as long as his body can hold up, I think he's a far superior boxer.
Yeah, fair point. I think the experience certainly is with him, to say that.
And that's what it is. Obviously, he's been in a lot more, like the opposition that he's faced has been at a high level as well. So I'll be backing Groves for that one.
Yeah, fair enough. And finally, Jake, I want to ask you your prediction for October 27th. How do you see your arm being raised? Obviously, you know, he's been in there with the likes of Frank on a few days' notice. A lot of people thought Frank could probably stop him. Frank didn't manage to do it. You hit hard. I don't need to tell you that. Can you do it in the distance, or does it go points in your heart of hearts?
No, 100%. Listen, I've got the power to knock out any light heavyweight. especially lots of Craig Richards. In my opinion, I think Craig's a lovely guy, but to me, he's not a proper light heavyweight. So if I catch Craig clean, which I believe I will, then he will be knocked out.
Okay, fair point. But listen, Jake, it's always my pleasure to get you on the show. You know that. Thank you so much for your time. Keep training hard in Sheffield, and I hope to be there ringside, by the way. But aside from that, I want to wish you the absolute best of luck for the 27th, and we'll catch up sometime after, as always.
No, thank you, Joey, mate. Always a pleasure, my friend. Anytime.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Ayaz, take it away. What you got for us?
Vasyl Lomachenko will face Jose Pedraza on the 8th of December.
Yes, obviously we saw Pedraza last time out when he beat and took the title away from Raimundo Beltran. He's out here on December 8th against Lomachenko. I believe the fight was supposed to happen on the 1st of December, and I think because of Fury and Wilder penciling in for that date, they've now just postponed it a week there. So, yeah, cool stuff there. A fight that I think Lomachenko wins pretty easily, but you know, Pedraza is a real good fighter, and he showed that in that Beltran fight. He shocked a lot of people, even though I picked him to win there.
Billy Joe Saunders has been fined £100,000 by the British Board of Control after uploading the video.
Yeah, this video that went viral, obviously, I don't even really want to get into it too much, but it was real poor form from a world champion there, it has to be said, especially a man that arguably is the face of Frank Warren's boxing. I mean, you know, obviously he's defending his world title on DAZN. He's an undefeated champion. It's not the first time he's done something quite silly like this, and this one I think went too far. Yeah, I mean, he's been fined. A lot of people saying it's a real heavy fine and it was probably too much, but I think it was quite steep, to be honest. $100,000 is obviously a hell of a lot of money. That's more than some boxers make in their entire career, but you know, hopefully it will stop him from doing childish things like this again. So hopefully it's a lesson rather than you know, a heavy punishment will hopefully stop him from doing anything like this again in the future. We don't want to see that from him. We want to see his fantastic boxing skills, which he does have in abundance, and he's a quality fighter, but you know, a little bit of poor form from him there, and it really needs to stop. I mean, he's a role model to children out there that want to be world champions, and he knows that at the end of the day. So hopefully we don't see anything like that from him again. And that's it for the news. Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Let's dive into the preview part of the show now. We're going to start a card that's happening tomorrow, actually, in the Gold Coast Convention Centre in Broadbeach, Queensland, Australia. Return of the former WBA heavyweight world champion, Mr. Lucas Brown. His record 25-1. He's in an 8-round contest against Julius Long, whose record is 18-20. Moving over now to China. We're really covering the world of boxing here, from Australia to China, and after this we're going to Ghana. But let's start here in China at the Changsha Social Work College Gymnasium in China. Like I say, one fight to mention on this bill, the Chinese Olympian Zhilei Zhang, the undefeated southpaw. His record 19-0. He puts his WBO Oriental heavyweight title on the line against Don Hainsworth, who's a fighter that I think lost to Bryant Jennings, if my memory serves me correct. His record 15-2 with one draw. Zhilei Zhang really needs to get moving now. The age is becoming a factor. I think he's about 36 years of age, and he really hasn't fought anybody of note in the pros just yet. A real promising prospect though. Moving over now to the Napoleon Boxing Gym in Accra, Ghana. One fight to mention over here, friend of the show, Ashley Fearfane. He's left the money team. He's now going on the road to Ghana. His record 43-8 with one draw. He takes on Frank Dodsey, who's got a record of 19-10. If I'm not mistaken, this guy Frank Dodsey, at one point, I think he put together 8 wins in a row. And all of his opponents that he fought and beat in this 8-win streak, every single one of them, if you put all their wins together, it comes to 0. They had no wins. So I'm expecting Fearfane to win this and win it well. Moving over now to Saudi Arabia at the King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah. I thought you may be going out to this one, but obviously not. On the undercard, we have Darren Surtees, his record 8-0. He's in an 8-rounder against Kane Baker, who gave a real fantastic fight to Sanjeev Sohota. Kane Baker's a real good fighter. I really like him. I got a soft spot for him. His record 8-4. That's a good fight there. Chris Eubank Jr. 26-2. He's in a 10-rounder against JJ McDonough, the man that caused the upset against the guest that came on earlier on this week's show, Jake Bull. So JJ McDonough 16-4. A 10-round contest here. McDonough, like I say, certainly can punch. He weathered a storm early on against Jake Bull and stopped him, and it was one of the most shocking stoppages I've ever seen. Nobody expected it, and it was a brutal knockout, if I may say so. Chris Eubank Jr., JJ McDonough, Ayaz, two separate levels really when you think about it. To go from fighting George Groves, the WBA Super World Champion, to then drop down in level and take on JJ McDonough on the undercard seems a little bit underwhelming. How do you see this fight playing out? We've gone to the predictions.
I personally think Chris Eubank Jr. is going to knock him out. Obviously, just a little warm-up fight since he's lost to George Groves. But I want to see, he's been training with Floyd Senior, which is really, really weird, in Vegas. But is he still training with, is Ronnie Davis still going to be in his corner, which I'm really confused about?
I think he's gone over to that Mayweather gym many times before. I think he's been doing pads with Floyd Senior for quite a number of years now, but I don't know if he's actually his trainer. I don't believe he'll be in the corner in Saudi Arabia. I can't see Big Floyd Senior getting on a plane from Las Vegas to Jeddah, but I could be wrong. But no, I reckon we'll probably see Ronnie Davies and Chris Senior out there, if I have to say so. But I reckon Eubank Jr. by knockout. I reckon he wins very easily. And the listeners have also gone with Chris Eubank Jr. to win by knockout. Anything else to add on that one, Ayaz, or no?
I think Chris Eubank Jr. is obviously going to knock him out. I reckon knock him out early.
Yeah, I have to agree. And the main event here, George Groves, 28-3, puts his WBA Super World Super Middleweight title on the line. Callum Smith gets in the ring here, obviously with his undefeated record intact, 24-0. But I tell you what, Callum Smith does bring a piece of silverware. He puts his WBC Diamond Super Middleweight title on the line. A 12-round contest here, Ayaz. A very hard one to pick. I mean, going into this tournament, we must remember Callum Smith was the favourite to win the tournament. And then, obviously, George Groves has put together two brilliant wins against Jamie Cox and Chris Eubank Jr., and that has now turned him into the favourite to win. A brilliant fight, like I say, a very hard one to pick, and I'm struggling on who to pick here. Obviously, Callum Smith, a friend of the show, he's very confident going into this one, and whenever he fights someone on a big stage against a big name, he always performs. But this is a real big name on a super big stage. Can he perform? Tell me.
Oh, that's a very tough call. George Groves has been improving. Obviously, this is a very tough fight for him. Callum Smith is to me, he looks like he's a bigger super middleweight than George Groves. George Groves, I think, is going to beat him by points, and I think George Groves' jab is going to do the work on him. Obviously, George Groves is going to be the favourite. Callum Smith, what he needs to use, in order for Callum Smith to beat George Groves, he needs to use his size. But the key for George Groves to win that fight is his jab, and I think George Groves is going to win it by points.
Okay, George Groves on points. That is what the listeners say also. A regular listener, Nathan Muse, that's N_Muse on Twitter, he says, Callum Smith to break Groves down with relentless bodywork and eventually get the stoppage. Now, that is a big call, but I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. I think that Callum Smith is an exceptional body puncher, and I don't think that Groves likes it to the body. George Groves, it's funny because we always kind of thought that he was the nearly man. I mean, he lost the two fights to Carl Froch. He went on the road and lost to Badu Jack in a real close fight where he went down, I believe, in the first round. And we just kind of thought, that's it for George Groves. He's seen better days. It's not meant to be. 3 world title fights, 3 losses. Obviously, the opportunity arose at one point and he just snatched it, and now he's looking like such a force. It's unbelievable the way his career's gone. It's gone, from being really brilliant at first. I mean, obviously, with the win over James DeGale early on kind of catapulted him into being really well recognised and stuff like that in terms of the big Sky shows, and obviously he was part of the whole Haymaker team with Adam Booth and the rest of it. And then, you know, he took on Carl Froch. He brought a lot of fans into that. He left the ring with even more fans, and then in the rematch, a lot of people thought that perhaps Carl Froch won't overlook him, and then he got cleaned out by that beautiful shot from Carl Froch. And then, like I say, going on the road against Badou Jack, a fight that went under the radar massively at the time. And then, you know, he lost, and I remember at the time he deleted his Twitter and he just went into the wilderness, and I think he even perhaps thought about stopping boxing. But now he's back and he's reigning supreme, and I tell you what, he's one of the best fighters in the world, if not the best, at super middle. But Callum Smith is looking to prove everybody very wrong. Yeah, hard fight to pick. I'm going to go Groves on points, but I would not be surprised if Callum Smith stopped him. I would not be surprised if Callum Smith outboxed him. I would not be surprised if Groves knocked Callum Smith out, because we know that he can punch. I really just wouldn't be shocked with any outcome at all, but I think the safe money is with Groves on points, because he's got the momentum behind him. 2 brilliant fights in this tournament already, and it's unbelievable that he entered the tournament and all 3 of his opponents have all been British. So he's the only guy that's not had to fight foreign people, and he's got all the way to the final. Obviously, Callum Smith had to go on the road once in his 2 fights here. He went over to Germany, obviously, but yeah. Good fight. I hope that Callum Smith can do it, seeing as he's a friend of the show, and may the best man win. I'm kind of on the fence a little bit, but if I have to say so, then it's Groves on points. You've said Groves on points also, Ayaz, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and the listeners going with that also. Moving over now from Jeddah to the Oracle Arena in Oakland, California, USA. 1 or 2 fights to mention over here. This one's going to be shown on ESPN+. It's a top-ranked show. We have Jerwin Ancajas. He puts his IBF World Super Flyweight title on the line against Alejandro Barrios. His record 16-2 with 4 draws. And obviously Ancajas 30-1 with 1 draw. That's the guy, for those people that, if they don't know Ancajas, which if you're a hardcore you should know Ancajas, but if you've heard the name and you can't think where he did beat Jamie Conlon earlier this year, I believe it was, or maybe the back end of last year. Also on the undercard we have Jose Uzcategui. Obviously he's the IBF super middleweight world champion. He's the guy that got elevated when James DeGale vacated. This is a non-title bout though. His record 27-2. He takes on Ezekiel Maderna, whose record's 26-4. That's a 10-rounder there, just to keep busy fight for Uzcategui. Moving over now to the Pechanga Resort and Casino in California, USA. Friend of the show, he was on a few weeks ago. Brilliant high-flying young prospect Devin Haney. He promotes his first show here, Devin Haney Promotions. It's going to be shown on Showtime. He tops the bill as well. His record 19-0. He fights for the vacant IBF North American lightweight title against Juan Carlos Burgos, who has only got 2 losses in 37 fights. His record 33-2 with 2 draws. Burgos' most recent loss came to Mikey Garcia over 12 rounds. So you know that he's obviously quite a decent fighter to go the distance with Mikey Garcia. So that should be a cracking contest and a brilliant step up for Devin Haney. Moving over now to Waldenbuch in Germany. We have Erkan Tepe, 19-2. He's fighting for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Heavyweight title against Robert Hellenius, 27-2. Quite a good fight actually. 2 subpar heavyweights there in the heavyweight division, but both guys, kind of at, I don't want to say similar stages, because Tepe hasn't had as many fights as Hellenius, but Hellenius is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Tepe, I mean, since he knocked out David Price with that brutal punch, he's been serving a drug ban, and everyone's kind of stayed away from him really. He hasn't really deserved a big fight, but this is his chance to capitalise on this one. Moving over now to the Leisure Centre in Bracknell, United Kingdom. I will be here on Saturday. It's an Al Siesta card. We had Al Siesta on the show last week. Let's run through the card here. We've got Lufa Clay 9-1. He's in an 8-rounder against Yaya Tlauziti. His record 13-3 with 3 draws. He's never been stopped. Lufa Clay perhaps if he's as good as what people say he is, he may get the stoppage here. His record 9-1, like I say, Luther Clay. Really looking forward to seeing him live. Naylor Ball's on the undercard. This is a real banana skin type fight. Naylor Ball 5-0. This is a 6-rounder here against Kamil Sokolowski. Obviously, Sokolowski fought Hughie Fury in that exhibition bout at the Copper Box when Hughie was out the ring for quite a while, and they had that little exhibition fight before he took on Joseph Parker. Kamil Sokolowski also has been in there with David Price. He's a real tough guy. Do not let the record fool you, I should say. His record 4-12 with 2 draws. George Lampert is also on the undercard. His record 5-0. He's in a 6-rounder against the also undefeated Comrade Stempowski. His record 8-0. We also see the heavyweight Nick Webb return to action. It's his first fight since being stopped by Dave the White Rhino Allen. Nick Webb's record 12-1. Obviously, like I say, the first fight from being knocked out on the undercard of White and Parker. A couple of other fights on that bill, so really looking forward to that one at the Leisure Centre in Bracknell. Moving over now to the Assembly Hall in Walthamstow, United Kingdom. This one is an Andy Aylin show. We have a couple fights to mention over here. Boy Jones Jr. 17-1 with 1 draw. His opponent yet to be announced. That's an 8-rounder there. Tamuka Mucha 16-1. He's in a 6-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. Jake Petit 3-0. He's in a 4-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. Harvey Horn 3-0. His opponent yet to be announced. That's a 4-rounder there. And finally, Harley Ben, his record 4-0. That is a 4-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. Moving over now to the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. This one's a Golden Boy Promotions card. We have Jorge Linares 44-4. He gets in the ring against Abner Cotto, who's a relation of Miguel Cotto, of course. His record 23-3. That's a 10-rounder there. Moving out now to the Citizens Business Bank Arena. This is the final bill to mention. It's happening in Ontario, California, USA. This one's going to be shown on Box Nation as well as Fox Sports 1 in the US. We have a few fighters on this bill here, actually. We have James DeGale 24-2 with 1 draw. He says he's got a big fight coming up in December, but he's in an 8-round contest here. It's a bit of a keep busy fight. His opponent yet to be announced. That's the only unfinished bout of the whole show. I think there's over 10 fights on this bill here. Also, Cody Davies, the Welshman, 7-0. He gets in there against Gerhard Fenderson, whose record is 4-6. That's an 8-rounder there. Big Joe Joyce, his first fight under Abel Sanchez. His record 5-0. He's in an 8-round contest against Iago Kiladze, whose record's 26-3. Kiladze is the guy that got knocked out by Michael Hunter, the man that's taking on Martin Bacoli in a couple of weeks. Also, we have Brandon Figueroa. That's the brother of Umar. His record 16-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Oscar Escandon. That's a huge step up there for Figueroa. Escandon's record 25-4. But that's really it for the previewing. We brought you the first guest. We brought you the reviewing. Umar Ahmed came on for part 1. We've brought you the news. We've brought you the previewing. But just before we wrap up part 2, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former British title challenger. It's, of course, Mr. Craig Richards. Craig, welcome back on the show, my man.
Hello. How are you? You good?
Yes, man, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed, feeling good, feeling strong.
Excellent. So, Craig, it's been a really long time since you've been on the show. Actually, it's been a year and a half this week, which is a long time ago. At that time, stuff was going on back then. A lot's happened since then. I want to get down to the big things, really. I want to start with that British title fight against Frank Buglioni. Obviously, you took him on with about 4 or 5 days' notice, something like that, after just moving up in weight literally the week before. You actually had a fight a week before that fight, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Could preparation have been much worse looking back now, Craig?
It could have been worse because obviously I was meant to fight a few weeks before that, just in a 4 or 6 rounder, so just ticking over, and then that got cancelled as well. Then obviously Eddie rang us in the week on the Tuesday, and then said, do you want to get out on Belfast? Just a 4 rounder. So I thought, well, obviously I can get through 4 rounds. It was a 4 rounder. So of course I went off and done that. And then on the Sunday, obviously Callum Johnson ended up in hospital. and obviously it was either Buglioni pulled the plug and didn't get the fight, or I could fill in on 5 days' notice. So, you know me, I'm a fighter. I like to fight, so of course I said, yeah, cool, like, roll the dice and let's go. So I did that. Come up short on points. The only regrets I probably had is at times where I probably troubled him. I should have maybe jumped on the opportunities I had, but obviously only having 5 days preparation for your first 12 rounder and not having a camp for it, you're going to be a bit cautious of throughout the rounds and stuff, of just working. But that was the only little regret I probably would have had. But apart from that, I don't regret anything. Learning curves, and I know what it takes to push on from there.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask if you had any regrets, but like I say, you know, obviously that fight was your first 12-rounder. You know, you had 5 days' notice or something, no time to prepare for the fight, no time to study your man, and obviously it was your biggest step up, and you took him the distance. It was a bit of a war at times, but undoubtedly your profile went up there. So good stuff all around. Now, since the Buglioni fight, obviously you've put together 2 wins, both by stoppage, both in the 3rd round, and now you take on your next opponent here, Jake Bull, on October the 27th at the Copper Box. That night of boxing, by the way, aside from your fight and including your fight, is a beautiful night of boxing. Like I say, we had Jake on the show earlier, and I'm going to start the question here with you, the same question that I gave to him. What do you know about your opponent, Craig?
Obviously, I've seen him a few times. I've watched him on shows. I know about his history. I know his background of his boxing. I know quite a lot about him, to be fair, ins and outs. Him as a person, I know a lot about him, but take that not into consideration. People can change, people can adapt and switch to things, so I don't really look into it too much, but I've seen enough of him, I know enough about him, so yeah, we boxed on a lot of similar shows. Yeah,
that's true, yeah. And obviously, you know, Craig, you're not a massive light heavyweight. I think you'd admit that yourself. Jake is very tall for the weight. He's 6'4". He's a southpaw. He's a puncher. How will you be able to deal with this man's strength, this man's size, this man's power?
Well, has anyone in amateurs, professionally or anything ever troubled me before? I was small at light heavyweight when I was even in the amateurs, but I didn't even weigh light heavyweight in the amateurs, but I used to cruise through that. Pretty easy, pretty simple. I'm a big, people don't understand. They think because like I'm normal size that I'm not a big light heavyweight. When it comes to punch power, I am. If you look at all my wins above super middleweight, like every time I've stepped above super middleweight, except the Buglioni fight, I've knocked him out within 3 rounds. So there's no question of my punch power at light heavyweight. And that was before I grew into the weight. Obviously, this last year I've been growing into the weight more, because obviously it's easy to just put on weight, but you don't want to put on unnecessary weight just to weigh heavier on the scales or whatever. It's about putting on the right weight. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. So my strength, my power, everything's even increased even more. So, and obviously my fitness, my stamina only increased. So I'm not worried about if he's taller, if he's wider, if he's that, all of that. That doesn't mean anything to me. This is boxing. It's not built for show, it's built to go.
And Craig, who would you say out of yourself and Jake has probably got the best win or the best wins on their resume if you look at both of your records?
I really look to see who his greatest wins, but after 7 fights, I'll beat a kid 12-0 for a Southern Area title with only 1 6-rounder.
Yeah,
so
Alan Higgins, I remember that.
Exactly, I've done that with, and I, to be honest, I was very ill at camp as well. Anyone can tell you, anyone in the gym will tell you. So I only really had a 3 weeks training camp before that fight, and it was my first step up, 10 rounds against a guy who just beat Chalarinda for the title. He's a seasoned campaigner. I think he's had 3-4 10-rounders at the time. I had 1 6-rounder and I stepped up, and I won my Southern Area, like headlining on Sky. Like, I've done that. So I don't feel like much prospects have stepped up as much as I have, as early as I stepped up. When you look at everyone who steps up, they're always the favourite going into these fights. I've been underdog a couple of times and I've come through. So, except obviously the Buglioni fight, which I took on 5 days' notice. So I don't really worry about someone's resume of if he has boxed anyone good or hasn't boxed anyone good. I just focus on myself.
And you know me, Craig, I sometimes like to throw a fact out in the middle of my interviews sometimes, and here's a lovely fact about you, or perhaps not so much of a nice fact, actually. Did you know that you've actually retired quite a few fighters? Obviously, you beat James Child, he never fought again. You beat Scott Douglas, he had one more fight and he retired. You beat Richard Horton, he never fought again. And as you mentioned there, you beat Alan Higgins, and he never fought again. So you seem to... You beat the fight out of people.
Most fighters I fight do retire after I fight them. That's the truth. Most fighters I fight retire. I think it was one point half the fighters I fought retired after boxing them. Some tried to roll the dice one more time, but they had no more fighting them.
That is insane.
So,
that is insane.
I just feel like, I think watching me and being in the ring with me is two different things. I think I look a lot more simple and a lot easier on the eye when you're watching me than when you actually get in the ring with me. And that's what I've heard multiple times after. So that's why I say I don't really worry about other people. I know what I can bring to the table. I know I'm strong. I know I'm mentally tough. I know I'm built for it. So.
And you're an honest man, Craig. You also really do know your boxing inside out. I want to throw a couple of names at you from the domestic scene at light heavyweight here in Britain. I'd like it if you could rank them, maybe from like, I think I'm going to throw about 7 names at you. If you could rank them from like, from the best to not necessarily the worst, but the least best, if you know what I mean. You up for that?
I probably won't be able to do that because I don't really focus on the others to that kind of degree.
Yeah, but you know
I probably
these
don't
guys.
focus on. I do know them, and I know more about some of them than others. So I feel like me doing it probably be a little bit biased at times.
All right, what I'll do, rather than you don't have to give all 7, but if I throw these names at you, I'm going to take yourself out of it. I want to ask you, out of these guys, who would you recognise as probably, well, in your opinion, the best on the domestic scene? Is that fair?
I can't rate some fighters like that. Not in my division, because I'm always biased to myself. So
yeah, but if I take you out of it, what if I take you out of it?
Yeah, but I can't look at other fighters because then I'm looking at the other fighters in light heavyweight and giving them too much props. that's what Eddie and Frank and all the other promoters to do.
Okay.
I can't promote other fighters.
Okay, let's move out of light heavyweight.
Do you know what, to be fair, like I do rate Jake as a fighter. I do think he's a good fighter. I'm under no delusion. I know he's a good fighter. Despite what people say, I know he's a good fighter. I think he knows what he's doing in there. So I'm taking this fight very serious.
Yeah, for sure. But coming out of the light heavyweight division, moving down a weight, and then fast forward in 2 days. I know that's a little bit confusing, but we're going to see a fantastic fight, hopefully in Jeddah. George Groves, Callum Smith, World Boxing Super Series Super Middleweight Final. Who wins that one for you, Craig?
It's going to be a tremendous fight. It's really a clash of styles, but it's going to be a tremendous. I'm really interested. It's like one of them proper 50-50 fights. If I really, really had to like close my eyes and point at someone, maybe I'll edge towards Groves just because he's supreme punch power. He's good tactics. He's boxing brain. He's got more to bring, I think, than Callum Smith, and he can really get down to the nitty gritty and he can box. I'm not saying that Callum Smith can't do both because he can, but I just feel like at the world level that Groves is boxed at, against the likes of Badu Jacks and stuff like that, and he's always putting on good performances. I just believe that he is a good operator.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, like you say, a clash of styles there. I mean, in my opinion, obviously, we've got Callum Smith, who's a tall, rangy guy, but his best work probably comes on the inside.
On the inside, yeah.
You've got George Groves, who is probably better with the distance, but he's a smaller man. It's
exactly.
Weird.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the shorter guy is going to be boxing long, and the tall guy is going to be trying to box in range. So it's a real clash of styles, but at the same time, George Groves can get it nitty-gritty on the inside. True. Where, not saying Callum Smith can't box long, because obviously he's a tall guy, but I just feel like he might just have the little edge, George. I'm not sure. It's a good 50-50 fight.
Yeah, for sure. And another fight that's been made... Sorry, go on.
I just think the experience of Groves would be good.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree, to be honest. But another fight that's been made November the 10th, one weight class up from you. Obviously, we're going to see Tony Bellew fighting for all the marbles against Usyk. Is Tony crazy for taking this fight, Craig? Can he win? Talk to me.
Not crazy. If he got knocked out clean, and anyone wanted to laugh at him, just check his bank balance afterwards. He's not crazy. He's rolling the dice. As he said, boxing's a puncher's chance. If he landed, imagine he lands and unifies the division. You know me, I'm a risk taker, so I would never call someone crazy for taking a risk in the sport of boxing, especially once you've achieved everything you've achieved. He believes in himself, and that's half the battle won.
And once again, I'm going to finish this interview with the same question that I asked Jake Bull earlier. How do you win come October 27th? When I asked Jake Bull this question, his words, and I quote, were, Craig isn't a proper light heavyweight, and if I catch him clean, which I believe I will, then he'll be knocked out. What's your response? How do you win?
Oh, come on. I'm going for the KO. Stoppage, 100%.
So this fight doesn't go the distance. Both men really believe that. So we're in for a fantastic fight.
We're in for a good fight, trust me. They'll understand that I'm a real light heavyweight come October the 27th.
Okay. But listen, Craig, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You know that. Thank you so much for your time, bro. And we'll catch up sometime after, as always.
Okay, catch up soon, bro.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 154 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to IFLTV's Umar Ahmed for his involvement in this week's show. A huge thank you to our two guests that are both fighting each other on October 27th, and both men predict a stoppage. Only one man can be correct. Best of luck to Jake Bull and Craig Richards. The prediction league currently stands at you, the listeners, in the lead on 59 points. Ayaz is on 57, and I am now on 57 also. I've caught up with Ayaz. Listeners, I'm coming for you also. Remember to please leave us a review on iTunes if you've got the time to do so. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all next week.